Welcome to the very first episode of the Krish Marketing Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of marketing and exploring strategies, insights, and success stories from industry experts. I'm your host, Krish Dhokia, and today we have an incredible guest, an old friend, but just an incredible marketer and entrepreneur joining us. Her name is Brittany Hodak. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, author, and customer experience speaker. Please welcome Brittany Hodak.
Hey, Krish. Thanks so much for inviting me on the inaugural show. I'm excited to hang.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Brittany. So we're going to get right into the meat of this because there's so much to unpack. You've done so much throughout your career, working with renowned brands and entertainers. And I have read your book, and it's just mind-blowing. I wish I had been out at the beginning of my career and not 20 years in, but it's never too late to catch up. Customer experience is so important. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and what kind of projects and things you're currently focused on?
Sure. So I grew up working in the entertainment industry. I got my first job at a radio station when I was 16, and then I went on to work at various record labels and entertainment agencies. When I was 26, I launched my own company called the Superfan Company that was really focused on helping artists better connect with their fans. And I had a lot of success with that company out of the gate. My first big national client was Walmart. So within a year of launching the company, I was creating like hundreds of thousands of the things that we were making because Walmart was selling them in 4,000 stores across the country. And so it very quickly went from working with superstar artists like Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and Dolly and Kiss to working with giant brands because, you know, Unilever and J&J and P&G and all the big CPG brands wanted in on all of these cool promotions that were happening at Walmart. So I very quickly learned that I needed to not just be able to understand the psyche of entertainment fandom, but really get a handle on consumer behavior as a whole and what made people over-index in their affinity to certain brands and not others, or advocate for certain brands and not others. And what I really kept coming back to, both in all of the, primary research that I was sort of living in real time and also everything that I could read and study and everyone that I could talk to, was that it was really all about the experience. And I think one of the mistakes that has been made at big companies, small companies, little companies, big companies, you name it, like this is something across the board that I think people get wrong is, and this is a very technical term, over siloification of businesses. Because like as a customer, you don't look at a brand and see a sales department and a marketing department and an onboarding department and a compliance department. Like you just see a company and you expect for people to be able to help you. So I wanted to sort of create a platform to tell everybody in the world, you've got to think about customer experience and you've got to do it from a place of customer centricity if you want to build a brand that people are going to love, remember, come back to, tell their friends about, etc. So I did it. That's my book, and what I speak on and what I teach about and talk about all the time is how you can use customer experience as your secret weapon, your number one competitive advantage to turn more of your customers into super fans.
That's awesome, Brittany. I've seen you on stage so many times throughout my career, especially in the last couple of years, and you've spoken at a lot of both mortgage and real estate conferences, small, big, and everything in between. And, one of the things I remember the first time I heard you on stage, you gave an example of, how I think you were an airline, executive milestone with an airline's loyalty points. And you went through this whole kind of story about how you lost some of those miles and, it wasn't a very good experience, or it was, and it wasn't whatever, but I experienced that. Now, the thing is, I experienced that just last week. And the car rental place I rent with, I decided to go cheaper and went to another car rental. And it was a terrible experience. I ended up going back over and saying sorry and saying, hey, I'm so sorry. I tried to deviate. And they're like, you should know better. There was just, very funny banter, but it's proof that, companies spend a lot of energy and time. In the mortgage industry, we spend a lot of energy and time, but it's quick. We get derailed quickly. and you don't finish that experience. So again, so many examples. I have maybe 30 questions for you, Brittany, but this one
Okay.
was a big one for me. Was Could you share an example of a brand that has successfully transformed its customers to superfans? Because our listeners really need to be able to kind of engage with an example.
Yeah, so I have several examples that I give in my book, but one of my favorites, which I also talk about sometimes on stage, is the online pet food retailer
Mm,
chewy.com. And one of the reasons that I love talking about Chewy is because their products are about as commodity as it gets. Like they
mhm,
sell pet food, pet medications, the same things that you can just get just about anywhere. And they aren't trying to compete and win on price. Sometimes they have the lowest price, but very often they don't, because what they are trying to do is differentiate themselves with the customer experience. So in my book, I actually walk through the very first email I exchanged that I had as a Chewy customer when I was trying to get this special prescription dog food for one of my dogs. And before I had even received the product, I had 3 email exchanges. Only really honestly needed the first one, but because the person who sent the note was like so helpful and so
mhm,
kind, it was so funny, I replied back just to thank her. She replied back again saying how, thankful they were to have me as a customer, how they couldn't wait to see pictures of Bear, they hoped the food worked for him, like all of these things, so that before I've even received that product, probably even before that product has shipped, I'm
mhm.
like, oh my gosh, this company feels different. They care about me. They care about my dog. I'm not just like somebody behind an order number or an email address. And I think one of the things that I say again and again and again is super fans are created at the intersection of your story and every customer story. And something that is common to every single company that turns customers into super fans is that they've not only shared the brand story, they've
Mhm,
found a way to engage the customer at a
mhm.
human level to show them we do care about you as an individual. We do care about you as an individual customer, and we're proving it. Like we know who your kids are, we know who your spouse is, we know why it's important to you to like get this house in this particular neighborhood, and we're not afraid to call back to those things. And one thing, again, with the like over siloification that a lot of companies do wrong is all of the information about a customer lives inside the mind of someone like early on in the marketing or sales process. It's not recorded, it's not transferred, it's not being shared so that somebody doesn't feel like, oh, I'm getting to like know a brand new person, or I'm inheriting this person because I've moved from this stage to this stage. And now I have to start all over again because this person has no idea who I am. They don't know what I need. They have no idea about the conversations that I've had with XYZ. So, when you're looking at your customer experience strategy, it's so important to get the high tech and the high touch stuff right so that you're
Mhm.
losing that super valuable information that the customer is sharing with you as they progress through the journey.
That's fantastic. It's funny. It's how marketing has made this full circle. We used to always think about marketing, and especially social media, as this make believe world, and it's not, right? And there's a couple of things at every conference I've been to that's been about marketing. They've either said the words AI, personal branding, or more importantly, authenticity. And I think that that's the core. And when we're building these marketing campaigns here at Kind Lending or any other marketer in the mortgage or real estate industry, really, you're building these campaigns and you're thinking about, okay, all of the deliverables, all of the things that have to happen, and all the data and the reporting, right? But what about where does the customer journey and customer experience fit into it all? And people aren't thinking customer experience first. They're thinking about the engagements, reactions, which all are a part of that experience, but it's not what we think about typically as marketers, which I find is interesting. Now, our mortgage loan officers, our realtors, everyone in the industry that touches the consumer cycle for a home purchase, I would consider an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you would as well. They're building their businesses, but as 2024 is steadfast approaching, um, how should they be how should they be thinking about customer experience as far as the common mistakes that they're making?
Yeah, well, I think you said it. Like, you've got all the things that are sort of like buzzwords right now, whether it's the authenticity or the AI or personalization. And I think that when people focus too much on like trends or, oh my gosh, I've got a deep dive here, it's because they don't have a strong core, right? Like you don't know at the core who you are. Like, what is your superpower? What makes you different from every other competitor? And if you don't know that, like if you can't confidently say, this is what makes us different, this is why customers should care, then you're always going to be chasing that next thing. You're always going to be trying to pick up because you are by definition a commodity provider. And like maybe somebody will go with you if you happen to be the first or the cheapest or the closest to their house or, the first one that, bought the lead, whatever. But if you truly want to differentiate yourself, you've got to have something driving the brand. You've got to have that North Star of this is who we are. This is why it matters. This is how our team works together to make the world a better place. And everyone on your team has to know and understand that. And so all of that is part of the customer's experience, because the customer experience isn't just like the during part of the process. It's not just from I filled out an application to a loan to, I signed the paperwork, it's closing day, yay. It extends far beyond that in both directions, before and after. And the reason that you have to have customer experience at the core of every decision that you make is you have to understand that you're losing a huge amount of leads that you never even know about, because somebody does a Google search, they look at a review, they go to your website and they're like, nah, I'll keep looking. And you never know who they are. And you don't know why they didn't choose you. And then after the fact, we all know the amount of people that, don't go back with the same lender the next time they're buying a home, because there wasn't anything particularly special or memorable about the experience. So the next time they're like, well, it doesn't matter if everybody's about the same. Why don't I just go with wherever I can get the best rate, rather than saying, I know I already have a relationship with the best in the business. Why would I want to go anywhere else when I could go with the best?
Yeah, but see, it's easy to become part of the norm of the situation around race and what have you.
Yeah.
And it's the tougher road is leading with customer experience, and that's such a different kind of world that we're used to. And the other part is always be competitive, right? I told my 5-year-old over the weekend, who I helped build his book report. I said, "Are you going to win the competition?" He's like, "Daddy, it's not a competition." I was like, "Always be competing, son." And that's a harsh reality. That's probably not applicable to him today. But our salespeople have to always be competing, and the competitive edge truly is customer service.
It is, absolutely.
Now, I've got one big last question for you, and I know that you're probably going to push everyone to this amazing book that I see right behind you. But what advice would you give to marketers, not specifically the sales folks, but the marketers who are eager to cultivate super fans for their companies, but don't know where to start? What is a great starting point?
So I think the biggest threat that every company faces, and a lot of this honestly falls to marketers, is something that's not on a lot of people's radar, and that's apathy. Customers who just don't care. Like they don't care enough to have an opinion one way or another. And there are a lot of reasons that people can be apathetic. It could be because they're just not a great fit for the product or service. Fine, those aren't the people we're worried about. But everyone who is or has the potential to soon be a qualified prospect is someone who you have to give a compelling reason to care about your brand. What makes you different? What makes you unique? What sets you apart? All the things that we were talking about before. So I think the biggest challenge marketers face is overpowering that apathy. Now, online, this could look like stopping the scroll, opting into something. Offline, this could be making somebody care enough to like actually read an ad, whether it's on a billboard or a park bench or, anywhere, a magazine, doesn't matter. You've got to make them care. So as a marketer, the challenge is how can you tell the right story to the right prospect in the right way that makes them remember you? And, we've all heard the marketing statistics of like, oh, it takes, 8 touches or 15 messages or whatever to make somebody care. That is how many it takes if they are bad. It takes exactly one great marketing message to get the attention of the right customer if it is executed correctly. However, if you don't have customer centricity at your core as a marketer and also as a company, it's going to be nearly, if not completely impossible to craft that message in a way that is going to resonate, but is also true, because of course we want to be using ethical marketing strategies, not unethical ones.
That's that apathy. So I'm writing that one down. You know, it is tough for marketers to figure out, how to do, and, a lot of us marketers are doing things on a larger, broader scale to satisfy all these audiences. But it sounds like there needs to be some homework done to really dissect. And how do you that? What a challenge! Challenge accepted, Brittany. That was
Well, thank you. And like for anybody who's like, I want to accept the challenge, but I don't know what to do. Here's a really great way to think about it. Well, I think about apathy. I think about the entire customer experience journey as like one of those ladders at a carnival that's attached at the top and the bottom, but it's really shaky. Like you're trying to get people from the bottom to the top, but
Mhm.
apathy is like the shake. It's all the distractions. It's everything that can make them fall off at any point from the bottom to the top. So if you are trying to figure out whether or not an ad that you have created, a campaign that you're running, something that you've come up with is going to overpower apathy, here's what you do. Put yourself in the mind of a prospect and ask, so what? Why should I care? So what?
Yeah,
Who cares? And ask that of the copy and then make it better. We're like,
right.
you're right. Maybe it's not obvious why they should care. And just ask, so what? Who cares? Does this matter enough to where you get to the point to where you're like, you know what? I can defend this. You will
Mhm.
care. Like this, I am giving you something. I don't care if it's a 5-second video or a 12-word ad or whatever that format is. I'm giving you something that's going to make you care if you are the right audience for this ad.
Right. Well, that's amazing. So Brittany Hodak, you are just an incredible human being. I've never had a boring conversation with you, right? And it's always like one of those things like, hey, you want to speak to someone that knows more about things than you do. You're one of those people, especially when it comes to customer service and experience.
Well, thank you,
Um,
my friends.
so Brittany, thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise today with the Krish Marketing Podcast. We're honored to have you as our first guest. And listen, it's going to be like the Jay Leno show or one of those late night shows. We're definitely going to have you back. It has been an enlightening conversation. But before we wrap up, please let our listeners know where they can find more about you and your work.
Absolutely. So you can find everything you need to know at brittanyhodak.com. I'm sure that's probably in the show notes. And if you want to check out my book, it's called Creating Superfans, How to Turn Your Customers into Lifelong Advocates. If you enjoyed this podcast, you might like the audiobook that I narrate. It's also available as an ebook and a hardcover available at Amazon and everywhere books are sold in real life. You can find it at Hudson News, Barnes & Nobles, wherever you like to get your books. But everywhere books are sold, Creating Superfans.
I feel like you've said that before.
I know. I'm like, please get my book at the airport
Well,
or literally anywhere else. No, I'm obviously totally biased, but I think it is a lot of fun. I wanted to create a business book that didn't feel like a business book because I wanted people to read it. I feel like part of the reason people don't prioritize customer experience and customer service is because they think it's boring, and I wanted to make it fun. So
yeah,
I hope that
it's not respective to any one industry. This is something that's working everywhere. Again, you've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world. So again, Brittany, thank you so much. Now, this concludes our first episode of the Krish Marketing Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to check out Brittany's book, Creating Superfans, and join us next time as we continue our exploration of marketing strategies and insights. Until then, stay curious and keep marketing.